Welcome to IMUA Quick Bite, a micro-learning series featuring subject matter experts from the inland marine insurance industry. I'm Eileen Monreale, Education and Training Specialist for IMUA, and I'm happy to introduce today's moderator, Ron Castellanos, Inland Marine Manager, Selective Insurance Company. Take it away, Ron.
Thank you, Eileen. Hi, everybody, and welcome to our newest edition of IMUA Quick Bites. As Eileen mentioned, I'm Ron, Inland Marine Manager with Selective, and I also have the honor of being the chair for our IMUA Contracting Committee. I'm happy to be joined today by a member of our committee, Samantha Kiley. Samantha is an executive portfolio underwriter at Berkeley Fire Marine. She's been in our industry for over 19 years, serving in various underwriting and product management roles. As you will see, she has a true passion for mentoring and training. Samantha has agreed to be our subject matter expert today as we delve into a very interesting and very topical matter. Samantha, thanks for joining, and please introduce yourself and tell us where we're going today.
Thank you, Ron. I appreciate that. Our topic is really a focus on the loss of earning or business income coverage for contractors' equipment. I've been getting asks about this more and more because I think more contractors are feeling supply chain restraints, lower inventory of certain equipment, and just struggles to kind of find that equipment that in the event a loss happens, they've got to keep the business running. So I thought what better way to kind of dive into the topic, but a quick bite to really give our members the opportunity to kind of understand this a little bit more.
Okay, excellent. All right, folks, so let's start to drill into the coverage elements. And I will tell you, I am running the slides, so my eyes are going to be all over the place, folks. But we want to start drilling into the coverage elements and options that are available for the most part in the contractor's equipment world. However, we want to just tell the audience, Samantha and I are going to be taking a very high-level view of the policy forms, as each of your companies, every company has its own forms, which include nuances and underwriting criteria. So we ask you keep that in mind. So Samantha, what are the coverage options out there?
So I call it the Rolls Royce of this, if you will, is really having the earnings and the extra expense together. So they're both covered in one limit, but you can bucket it out where if you just wanted the earnings. So if they are covering just only lost earnings, that would be the actual loss of your net income that would have been earned or incurred had an insured loss not have happened to that particular piece of equipment. Or you could just do extra expense only, which would cover just the extra expenses incurred to keep operations going. So an example of that would be a rental of replacement equipment, some expediting shipping or rush orders on that equipment, maybe expenses to relocate that item to be closer to your job site, cost to maybe outfit or operate that equipment, or just different cleanup, things like that.
Okay, so I would imagine, like all contractors' equipment, this coverage is going to have specific exclusions that we should be aware of. Can you outline some of them for us?
Yes. And you and I both know, Ron, devil's in the details. So you definitely have to look at those exclusions. So some of the things that you might have exclusions around could be, the fire extinguishment costs, losses from canceled leases, licenses, or contracts. I will say a little highlight into the updated edition date of the CEAIS contractor form. That's actually a coverage. The lease or continuing a lease is actually being added in. So watch for that. That's something fun coming up with the new edition date. Maybe a strike or protest could be excluded. Unnecessary expenses, can't spend forever and all the things on this replacement piece of equipment to keep things going. And your utility service failures could also come into play. So just watch for some of those exclusions.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. We should get our agents on here to talk about the exclusions. So I know we have a lot of different valuations, and again, subject to each company's form. But give us some idea of some of the basic limit considerations that should be contemplated.
Sure. So when you're thinking of your earnings loss, you're going to think and look through the historical and projected business performance and just what income they're generating from that equipment or at a specific job site. If you're thinking of extra expenses, you're going to want to have documentation that demonstrates what was spent in excess to get that replacement equipment ready to go. And if the business is not resumed properly, a payment, is based on time it should have taken to resume. So, don't, drag your feet like my, kids do when they're trying to, leave the house and get in the car. And then you're thinking of, limits and conditions. So your payment is capped really to the limit shown for this particular coverage. So paying attention and setting the right limit is really important. They're not going to get paid beyond what's stated. And there could be some disputes that may require some, appraisal or an arbitrator to kind of say like what's really, again, over and above or excess. So just kind of being mindful of those things.
Okay, great. So I would have to think, or of course I know, what deductible or wait periods are involved in these forms.
Yeah, so traditionally, when you think of business income, it's usually not a fixed dollar. It's really a waiting period, as you've mentioned. So I would say the standard or typical would be 3 days or 72 hours, but there's certainly options for 48, 24, or perhaps even no waiting period for this coverage. And it's really going to be underwriter's choice. Risk choice depends kind of what makes sense.
Good. Okay. So as the slide says, let's think about a little bit what kind of contracting companies might be interested in this coverage. For me and for our company, we see it a lot in the heavy construction contractors. These contractors will have cranes, bulldozers, excavators, loaders, the typical contractor's equipment. But then we'll see a lot now recently, the demolition robots, the robotic concrete saw cutting, and even the robotic bricklaying machines. All these machines, whether they're robotic or they're just our good old plain bulldozers, they're very central to the operations, and downtime, of course, could halt a project and lead to significant revenue loss. What other types of contractors are you seeing?
I think for me, in a generalization, I would just think of it too as if you have a contractor that's doing their business at job sites and there are pieces of equipment that are vital to their operation, they're going to need a coverage like this to really protect their business income potential loss because they're going to live and breathe by that equipment that's keeping their business running. So, some good examples could be road and infrastructure contractors. And they have to be careful too, because there could be delays with breach of contracts and incurring penalties because the job can't be completed timely. So just really important for them to make sure that they're getting, that replacement equipment quickly and they're, insured appropriately. You could have utility and pipeline contractors thinking about where they're operating. That could be a very remote, even a time sensitive type operation. So if their equipment gets damaged, it could really stall and affect a lot of different stakeholders. So
Yeah.
that's another really important one. Landscaping and tree service. So thinking even just seasonal work, a landscaper is doing a lot of work, except probably not a ton in winter unless you're a snowplower. But when it is high time to do a lot of those tree cutting services, and let's say the equipment breaks, is down, or has a fire, they're going to need that replacement right away because they don't want to lose that money from continuing or not being able to continue operations. And then my last example was an electrical and mechanical contractor. They are working on very tight schedules. If equipment's down and they can't do their work, it's going to really affect, again, that delay in the project, affecting clients and kind of their staging of that project.
Yeah, and I think it's great you mentioned the road and street and the utilities in particular. If those companies are involved with state, local, or federal government projects, the delays could be very costly. Absolutely. Yeah, great points. So I guess we'll end this with just a little brief discussion on some of the basic underwriting considerations. And I know you're big on preparedness and continuity. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. I always want to have the insured think about the loss before a loss is going to happen. So in terms of mitigating the impact of a piece of equipment down in your operations, something an insured could do would be checking in on existing relationships with contracting equipment rental organizations locally to know that there might be a piece available to them in the event they need it. I also make some of my contractors do it when they're going out of state and it's a new state or maybe a different relationship. To find
Right.
someone locally is really important But again, people aren't usually thinking about that. So I'm like, just do it before the loss happens. We don't want to play, rush when you don't have to. If the equipment is damaged, again, it's what's the game plan? Do you have a backup piece of equipment you own? And a lot of times contractors do, which is fantastic, but is it operational? I can't tell you how many times a contractor's like, yeah, I've got this extra crane. And I'm like, great, does it work? Have you maintained it? Well, no, it's just sitting out there and I'm just using it for parts. I'm like, well, then that's really not going to help you. So like,
Exactly.
we got to think that through. And then two, you mentioned robotic concrete cutters. A lot of those pieces of equipment are manufactured overseas. So just kind of understanding like what's the average or anticipated turnaround time to manufacture a replacement. Maybe it could be pretty quick, but the last one that I used to insure, it's usually about an 8-month to a year turnaround because they're very sophisticated and it's a lot of component parts that they use to build them. So it could really be a significant impact, and even just whether or not they're even something like it in the States. So, just things to consider, just trying to be a bit more prepared, and kind of mitigating that loss and impact to their operations the best they can.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a great point. A lot of us forget about the foreign manufactured equipment because if one goes down, the chances of another one being around are pretty remote. Most of the rental companies don't have them. So as you said, it really causes a huge time gap in getting it replaced. So great. Well, thank you so much, Samantha. As always, really appreciate your time. More importantly, your engagement and expertise in working with the Quick Bites. And for everybody else, thank you for tuning in. We appreciate your time. Thank you, as always, to our friend Eileen and our friends at IMUA. And we look forward to seeing you on the next Quick Bites.